Good evening. In this edition of Southern Newsweek, Invercargill Mayor Tim Shadbolt advocates and supports of the SOS, Save Our Site or Save Our Services campaign, determined to keep Dunedin Hospital within the central city. Lumsden is being described as vibrant and alive for the first time in 3 decades, and Invercargill's South Alive Community Development Group pushes towards becoming self-funding by opening its very own food store called The Pantry. Good evening. With Southern Newsweek, I'm Craig Story. Invercargill Mayor Tim Shadbolt appeared at Dunedin Hospital today in support of the SOS or Save Our Site, Save Our Services campaign, determined to keep Dunedin Hospital within the central city. The government has set aside $300 million to cover the costs of a new hospital building, but it has not yet said where the hospital is to be built and what the future might hold for the Otago Medical School.
Invercargill Mayor Tim Shadbolt made a show of solidarity with Dunedin today, restating the Invercargill City Council's commitment to regional healthcare.
Regions that suffer from the tyranny of distance like ours need to be good at campaigning and good at lobbying, because otherwise we are out in the cold a little bit.
Shadbolt says he and Invercargill stand behind the Dunedin City Council's decision to launch the online SOS petition, Save Our Site, Save Our Services, referring to Dunedin Hospital's central operations and education facilities. The Dunedin Council launched the campaign for the Dunedin Hospital to remain in the central city when it is rebuilt, and is demanding the government retain the hospital's education facilities. The Dunedin Council says a central location in the heart of Dunedin is essential for Dunedin residents who need easy access to the hospital.
From our point of view, this is the perfect site, because a lot of our families come down here for these services. They want to stay in close proximity to the hospital, and this is where all the motels and good accommodation is located.
And Shadbolt says it's vital education services are retained in Dunedin so the city can lead the charge throughout the south.
Technology is moving into the field so that the smaller towns like Cromwell and Twizel can be serviced through new entities and new developments. So the education of our junior students is of vital importance to the future of medical services. 5
options are currently under review, including developing the hospital within the existing ward block and scattering services in different sites across the city. Roselle Lebone, The South Today.
Oamaru's historic Harbour Street is getting a World War I style makeover. The location will be used for filming an installation dedicated to the Anzacs to be displayed at the Sir John Monash Media Centre in France. A public notice in the Oamaru Mail last Friday noted that Harbour Street businesses would remain open. He said there will be several battle scenes being filmed during the time in the general area. The northern Southland town of Lumsden is being described by locals as vibrant and alive for the first time in almost 30 years. The surge in tourism is bringing freedom campers into the area, and locals say businesses are profiting and the town is buzzing. Mina Amso has the story.
Lumsden's local and tourism liaison officer, Wallace Drummond, isn't a smartphone techie kind of guy, but he's thankful for smartphones because the majority of freedom campers come to Lumsden via a smartphone app called Campermate.
It's the only way to find Lumsden, and they hear good reports. It's got the highest rating of any campsite in New Zealand, they tell me. 5-star rating.
And the numbers have doubled over the past 2 seasons.
The town, I haven't seen it so vibrant since the 1970s when the Kingston Flyer was stationed here, and you also had the old railways buses always coming and going.
Drummond agrees, and he sees businesses like Foursquare are thriving.
And there's people walking in and out where I've been at meetings here, and within the engineer said to me the next day, 17 young ladies walked out of there with bags in about 10 minutes. Over to the campsite.
The Community Development Group chairman and cafe owner Rob Scott says the town has been through a lot of ups and downs.
In the time that I've lived in the town, it's sort of gone through. When we moved here, it was really busy, humming, vibrant town, and then it had a decline and all the shops shut in the main street. It basically looked like a ghost town for a while there, and it's started to come back up now, and it's probably the most alive I've seen it in a long time, and the Freedom Campers definitely help.
It encourages people to stop when they are passing through.
Sort of walking through there and seeing what used to be just an empty space now full of people, and they all sit on the platform and they play cards and they have guitars out, and it's really nice.
Lumsden has had some not so positive press in recent times, in one report describing it as desperate and cheap. Drummond is calling for the government to support and invest in Lumsden, funding basic infrastructure to keep up with the tourism boom. Mina Amso, The South Today.
Arrowtown's revamped jail officially opened on Sunday. The 140-year-old restoration project came to just over $200,000. Wakatipu Heritage Trust trustee David Clark hopes it will become another must-do for locals and for tourists alike. Funds came from the Wakatipu Heritage Trust, the Department of Conservation and Queenstown Lakes District Council. The government also put forth $75,000 back in 2014. The new jail has information panels detailing Arrowtown's law and order history. Visitors walk into a museum-like building and are greeted with audio recounting Gold Rush era stories. Lakes District Museum will act as a custodian once it's up and running and will furnish the site to make it look exactly how it was back in the day. Invercargill's South Alive Community Development Group has taken a large step forward towards becoming self-funding by opening a bulk food store. It's called The Pantry and provides bulk food and community kitchen facilities. Here's Invercargill reporter Ruby Spink.
The wait is over. Community Development Group South Alive can add bulk food store to their list of renewed facilities for South Invercargill. The Pantry is now open. And retail manager Lisa Mohinoa says it was a long process to get the store to this point.
So we took over from the bin-in, and we have kept a lot of the same suppliers. I had to set up accounts and all that sort of stuff, but we've kept the same suppliers and we've got the same products and same pricing and that, so we've got this computer system. Everything from design, we had the architects design it, and then the construction phase finished, I think it was around Good Friday. So yeah, from that point on the building was ready to go, and then I had 3 weeks to set the store up.
South Alive has led initiatives such as community gardens, Aurora streetlights, dog parks, basketball courts and beautification groups. The Pantry was added to the list of projects under the $1.2 million Community Hub Plan. Mohinoa says the profits from the Pantry will go to South Alive to finance further projects.
The idea came from South Alive wanting to be self-sufficient and self-sustainable, so they don't have to fundraise and go to different places to get their funding. They can get it for themselves.
The Pantry will have a commercial kitchen for kohakai, a cafe, community kitchen for cooking demonstrations, as well as the bulk food shop. The final touches are being added and customers are already checking it out.
Well, I didn't know what they're going to have, but they look like they're going into bulk, just like bin-in. So that'll suit a lot of people.
The grand opening ceremony, which includes entertainment, competitions and a sausage sizzle, will take place on Saturday. I'm Ruby Spink for The South Today.
Still to be seen and heard on Southern Newsweek, Alyss says making steampunk costumery provides a welcome distraction from depression and the pain of fibromyalgia. Burlesque hygienic flashes at Dunedin Hospital too. Welcome back to Southern Newsweek. A young Dunedin woman is finding a way through fibromyalgia and depression through steampunk. Art student Alyss says making steampunk outfits provides a welcome distraction from the pain. The Dunedin Steampunk Society caught up with reporter Roselle LeBone as they took over Shop on Carol.
Inside Dunedin's Shop on Carol lurks the fantastical creations of 2016 Steampunk New Zealand fashion winner Alyss, aka Alyss Pleasance Liddell. Every inch of fabric, every stitch is perfectly in place. It took Alyss a year to make this garment. But when you find out what the work really cost her, the word painstaking takes on a new meaning.
Cool. I'm just going to...
So sometimes it's quite hard to do things like fine motor skills such as embroidery, which I did a lot on the outfit, but sort of anyone can do it. If you just sort of put your mind to something, you can do it.
Alyss suffers from fibromyalgia, a disorder characterised by widespread musculoskeletal pain accompanied by fatigue, sleep, memory and mood issues. Difficult, detailed work, like the steampunk outfits on display at Shop on Carroll, should make her condition worse. Instead, steampunk has been a lifeline.
When I work on it, it's like a meditative thing and I don't notice the pain as much. Plus, also for me, steampunk's been really helpful as well because I have a lot of mental health problems as well. And it's just escapism. It's nice to know sort of like I can go off and imagine myself as, an interdimensional seamstress travelling around through time and space rather than just, lying in bed and feeling miserable.
Clothing and real working gadgets of Dunedin's Steampunk Society and the Dunedin Gasworks Guild of Gadgeteers have been temporarily relocated to the shop. Steampunkers are inspired by a Victorian vision of what the future would look like. Think Jules Verne and the Industrial Revolution. On Saturday the 13th of May, they will host a range of activities, including steampunk tea duelling.
Why don't we do this and maybe we could make something work? What about remote control? Next thing it was, why don't we put teapots on a car chassis and then we could race them?
Alyss has been too busy with art school to enter the New Zealand Fashion Show this year, but you can bet she and the other punkers have something special up their sleeves for their next magical creation. Roselle LeBone, The South Today.
A burlesque mob of hygienic flashes appeared at Dunedin Hospital recently. The Dunedin Hospital Infection Prevention Control Team put on and took off feather boas and gloves as part of a flash mob. Their aim was to spread the word on how not to spread the bugs.
Yeah, awesome.
The foyer of Dunedin Hospital was a clean machine today, World Hand Hygiene Day. This year's theme is around fighting antibiotic resistance, and the hospital decided to share the message a little differently.
Moments, 5 moments for hand hygiene.
With new viruses on the rise and strains of antibiotics becoming increasingly resistant to medication, it was a timely, not to mention saucy, reminder that hand hygiene saves lives.
It's the 5th of May and it's the whole of the world is looking at antimicrobial awareness and it's in your hands.
The DHB hopes the day will refresh their healthcare workers' hand hygiene knowledge.
It's about keeping yourself safe, about keeping your family safe, and most importantly, our patients, because we're nurses. So, and the more patients that know about nurses, washing their hands before they come and see them, that's all good.
Displays reminded staff about the 5 moments of hand hygiene, including hand washing before and after a procedure and before and after contact with patients. Information on antibiotic resistance around the DHB was also provided, and infection prevention and control staff were on hand. Recent studies show Southern DHB is achieving 83.3% hand hygiene compliance in the latest Hand Hygiene New Zealand audit. Roselle LeBone, The South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, New Zealand Fertiliser Company says they're going to avoid South Africa in the future. And Shrek, the merino ram, he'll be immortalised in a toilet mural. Welcome back to Southern Newsweek. New Zealand fertiliser company Balance Agri-Nutrients boss says they're now going to avoid having their raw materials stopping in South Africa on their very long journey here. This follows a shipment of phosphate being seized on its way from Moroccan-occupied the Western Sahara on claims that the rocks were illegally sourced. But Balance CEO says the company has done everything by the book.
A New Zealand company's in international trouble after a shipment of 50,000 tonnes of phosphate was stopped on its way to the country late last week. Balance Agri-Nutrients plants in Awarua Southland, Taranaki and Tauranga turn raw materials into farm-grade fertiliser. The rock seized on Thursday New Zealand time was sourced from Morocco and Western Sahara. A South African court order in Port Elizabeth impounded the vessel NM Blossom on the grounds that its shipment was illegally obtained. Balance Agri-Nutrients CEO Mark Wynne says the company has done nothing wrong, and had the shipment gone through the Panama Canal as usual, nothing would have happened.
Well, this is a very long-standing political and geopolitical issue. It goes back potentially hundreds of years when Bedouins were in the area, but more recently in the 70s when the Spanish pulled out of Morocco and there was a dispute between a number of countries as to who owns this particular region. It's very complex, it's tied up at many different levels. There have been wars over the region, and today we have United Nations on the ground trying to find an enduring solution between the two parties, which is primarily Morocco and Algeria.
Federated Farmers Southland Provincial President Alan Beard says farmers are concerned about what's going on, from both a practical standpoint of how this delay will affect the availability of fertiliser for crops and from an ethical perspective.
To a large extent, farmers think that our co-ops are doing the right, that they are sourcing from countries around the world who have good human rights records.
Around 70% of the world's phosphate comes from Morocco, and Balance Agri-Nutrients has been sourcing the mineral from Western Sahara for over 20 years. Mark Wynne doesn't see this changing, however there are other areas that can be sourced for phosphate in the short term. He says he has first-hand knowledge of the conditions in Western Sahara and believes the company has nothing to worry about.
Most of our vessels tend to go through the Panama Canal and come across to New Zealand that way. This vessel chose to go down the west coast of Africa, pull into South Africa for fuel before coming across to New Zealand. In this particular case, South Africa is one of the few countries that disagrees with Morocco and has recognised the Western Sahara region as a country in its own right. So we won't be going to refuel our vessels in South Africa.
The vessel will remain in South Africa for a number of weeks. I'm Ruby Spink for The South Today.
NASA's super pressure balloon launched from Wanaka Airport has landed in the Pacific Ocean after a brief flight of only 12 days, 4 hours and 34 minutes. It was hoped that the balloon would stay in the stratosphere for over 100 days. Instead, it developed a leak during a storm on its third day, and NASA decided to end the flight 300 kilometres southeast of Easter Island. Balloon Program Chief Debbie Fairbrother says NASA would analyse the data collected to determine why the balloon developed a leak. The balloon and its 2-tonne payload is designed to sink to the bottom of the ocean. Terrace's woolliest celebrity, the late Shrek, will be the public face of the village's new public toilets when they're finally built. Shrek, the merino ram, he died a few years ago, you'll remember, will be immortalised in a mural. Here's the South Today's Jono Edwards.
Terrace is a village on the major Christchurch to Queenstown tourist route. And it's a village that has been fighting a battle for permanent public toilets to cater for tourists desperate to spend a penny. Many relieved themselves in the grounds of the Terrace Primary School, leading to the installation of 2 portaloos there. However, next month, a permanent solution, 3 unisex toilets, 1 with wheelchair access, will be put in place by the Central Otago District Council.
The issues prior to that have been phenomenal for the school, and the children have had to deal with a lot of issues and felt very strongly about it, and they advocated very strongly about how they felt about their school playground being used as a toilet.
The wall of the toilet block will be graced by an image of Terrace's best known celebrity, the late Shrek the Sheep. The toilet project is being funded with $247,000 from the government and $370,000 already set aside by the council. I'm Jono Edwards for the South Today.
And that almost wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. Be sure to like us on Facebook, check out YouTube and Twitter, and keep up with the Southern News via our website, channel39.co.nz. I'm Craig Story, and this has been Southern Newsweek.